We're going to talk about IP in the context of medical device launch. So the first thing I want to convey to you is that I think people put way too much emphasis on this thing called IP. You know, it's like everyone's talking about, hey, I need IP, I need IP, do you have IP? You know, is it important? Yes, but I think that people put way too much emphasis on that. The way I think it does make sense in terms of importance is to figure out whether this question of IP has some impact on the company. And that company impact, I think, has to be looked at in terms of, you know, is this IP decision going to increase the value of the company? Is it going to increase the value of the product that we're launching? Or do we need to be doing something IP-wise to prevent a decrease in the value of the company or the product? Okay, so we're going to talk about two things. I don't know, maybe we might only talk about patents because Dan said I can't speak for an hour. I only have 5 or 10 minutes to get through all of this. So the first issue, and these are just issues. They're not, you know, I don't want you to look at them as requirements, but something to think about, right? Something to just think about. So the first thing is, you know, is your device patentable? And you can look at it in terms of two aspects. You can have utility patents, you can have design patents. You know, utility patents pretty much cover, I don't know, compositions of matter, business processes, machines that are making something. On the other hand, design patents cover ornamental designs. So you can have a product like the chair that you're sitting in, and it could be subject to utility patent protection as well as design patent protection. So the utility part of this chair is that it's got a seat back, it's got a seat bottom and 4 legs. The design part of it is the, I don't know, shape of the seat back with the hole in the back there. The other part of whether you have a patentable medical device is to look at it in terms of geography. So in general, patents are only good on a country-specific basis. So you get a patent in the United States, it's only going to give you coverage or patent coverage in the United States. You want foreign patent protection, you've got to go get patents in foreign countries. Do you have to go get patents in a foreign country? No. Are you selling product, or do you plan on selling product in a foreign country? If the answer is yes, well, okay, then maybe you consider getting foreign patent protection. But you shouldn't start from the assumption that you have to have foreign patent protection. So how do you figure out whether your device might be patentable? One way to start is with a patentability search. Again, that has to be on a country-specific basis. So just because your device might be patentable in the United States doesn't mean that it's patentable in any foreign country. Another part of whether your device is patentable is that you might want to look at the statements that you or your company is making to the FDA. In trying to get a product through FDA, you might want to be telling the FDA that your product is just like this other product that's been out on the market for 20 years. And yeah, that might be a good thing to say to FDA in order to get FDA approval, but when you're looking at it on the patentability side, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. Okay, next, what are your patents actually covering? A lot of times what happens is that folks are filing for patent protection very early on in the design stage. And so what they file for their patent application may not actually cover the device that's eventually coming out on the market. But one thing that you may want to consider is that you're going to have probably more value in the company, more value in your product, if your patent actually covers the product that you're selling and not something that's different from it, right? Because if you want to prevent some knockoff, you want your patent to cover that product that you're selling, not something that's just kind of like it. Do your patents cover your competitor's product? All right? Again, if they do, you might increase the value of your company. You might increase the value of your product. The reason is that if you can stop your competitor from selling its product because of the patents you hold, that may lead to greater value in your company. Who owns the patents? A lot of companies assume that they hire somebody, whether on an employee basis or an independent contractor basis, they pay that person to do research and development work, come up with some new device that, or assumably that the company owns the patent rights to it. That's wrong, all right? So one way to address that is to make sure that you've got, that is you, the company, have some type of agreement with the person that's working on that product so that you own the patent rights. Okay? Again, that applies to both employees and 1099 independent contractors. So does your device infringe? If it infringes, you can't sell it. Or if you do sell it, you might get sued. So one thing that can be done to address that potential problem is you have this thing called a freedom to operate search. Essentially what that does is that someone goes out, looks at competitor patents to figure out if your product is going to be infringing your competitor's patents. If it does potentially infringe, what you might then have to do is go out and take a license from the company that owns the patent that you might be infringing. Trademarks. You know, if you've got a device that you're going to be selling to, for example, like a hospital, you know, do they really care that, you know, the name of your product is X or Y? You know, probably not. If you're selling your device directly somehow to the consumer or patient, yeah, they might start to think that that's a little bit more important, or there's going to be some value in having the patient or consumer be able to associate some name with your company. So, different types of trademarks. One can be merely descriptive. So if I've got a name that's, for example, like cheap catheters, that might be a merely descriptive trademark. Is it a good trademark? Probably not, you know, because everyone's trying to sell a cheap catheter. You know, is it arbitrary? Kind of like Nike. You know, you hear the name Nike, you probably can't figure out, well, if you heard it for the first time, you probably couldn't figure out what they actually sell. So in selecting a trademark, you probably want to choose one that's more on the arbitrary side. Again, you know, can your trademark, trade name, logo be registered? What you have to consider is whether it's confusingly similar to another's trademark. That doesn't mean that it can't be identical. I'm sorry, I've got that backwards maybe. So the question about confusingly similar is not whether your trademark and the other person's trademark is identical, it's whether it's confusingly similar. And there's a number of different factors that you have to legally look at. So again, here's another issue to consider about who actually owns the logo that you came up with. Just because of the way the laws are set up, just because you hire somebody, pay someone to develop your logo or brand, that doesn't mean that you own it. So how do you deal with that issue? You make sure that you've got something in writing between you, the company, and that person that you hired. And that includes not only employees, but also independent contractors. Again, on the question of infringement, you probably need to look not only on the federal level, but also the state level, and also in foreign countries if you're using marks in foreign countries. Infringement, again, is kind of like that issue that I was talking about, confusingly similar. Just because your trademark brand name is different than your competitors, that does not mean you are not infringing. You could be infringing if there's some likelihood of confusion. How do you avoid that infringement issue? Kind of like that freedom to operate search, you can do a clearance search to make sure that you're good to go.